Hey folks, ApeXShaver here. I'm the guy who Doug DeMuro says has lots of quirks and features. I've got that video. It's around here somewhere. But either way, if you follow my content, you'll soon find out what he's talking about. Definitely have a lot of quirks. Hopefully some positive features that you'll enjoy. I'm a 60-plus-year-old sim racing enthusiast. Been doing it for a while. But if you're looking for a total alien type channel, you're probably in the wrong place. You might want to go check out, I don't know, Jardier, Dave Cam, Emery, somebody like that. But if you're just looking for entertaining sim racing content, this could be the place for you. And I'm not going to be coaching you or coaching you into pushing certain buttons, doing certain things. Hey, it's your own free will. You'll do what you're going to do or not. So now let's get on with the next video.
All right, guys and gals, here we go with part two. If you haven't seen part one, make sure to look at that first. I would recommend at least, and the link will be in the description for that. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm cutting the panel that will go below the seat and closing the base there. And so I'm just going to make some cuts on that right now. Get that going. This video will have, by the way, through this part here, that it's going to have me installing Buttkicker next, and then working on the shifter, which is the most difficult part. And we're going to walk you the difficult parts through, since this is a pretty much full build, other than some time gaps and stuff that I edited out. And other than that, it's going to be pretty straightforward. So we're getting this panel on. We're going to do the usual gluing it down, pre-drilling, countersinking, and screwing. Get that down in there and get that part going. And this is where the part I did earlier on part one, where I drilled the holes back through the bottom from the top down, so that whenever that happens, I can go back like I'm doing here. And I'm actually going to drill back through. That way I get the exact location. Now, some of you may be saying, well, you could have just measured that. Yeah, I could have just measured that before and then duplicated that, but nothing's better than drilling back through the actual holes. It's easy, you'll never miss. There's no fudging. It's just going to be perfect, because it has no other choice to be perfect. So now I'm just cleaning up the edges a little bit there on the parts that you're still going to see. I'm going to clean those up more later, but for now, that's what I'm going to do. And as you can see, because I did it that way, the seat was good enough to fit in there and allow me to take a quick nap. A very quick nap. So as you notice here, I didn't have the part where I took this part off the seat, but I did just disassemble the base from the seat. Now, one of the problems that I had is that the seat rail handle for the up and back on the seat is on the right side. Now, my rig is going to go in the area that I have for it, but it's going to pretty much go as close as you can to the wall on the left, or on the left side of the rig. So it was going to be in my way no matter what I tried to do. I couldn't figure out a plan to make it work with that on that side. So what I'm doing here now is I'm switching that around to the other side. It's going to change my movement position just a little bit. The stroke obviously be the same, but you always do stroke before position, and then timing if you're doing the mechanical thing. But because position won't change stroke, but stroke will change position. That's kind of a mechanical thing. I don't know why I'm telling you that, but anyway, in this case, the stroke will be the same. The position will be a little different. It's not much different, and it actually turned out really well. But the only thing is, the handle will have to be on the right side at the very back, instead of being up towards your hand. And I didn't want to get so technical as to try and figure out how to do that. It's fine that way. But in doing that, I found out they had some bad bolts in here, and I went ahead and right here I'm actually tapping out the holes to get that to bolt in properly with new bolts. So now what I'm doing is I'm getting ready to do the butt kicker, and I bought a butt kicker for this, and it's the clamp-on type. There was nothing to clamp it onto. You know, it's made where you can clamp it like if you have an office chair type situation. So what I did is went down and got a piece of pipe, cut it to length. Now I wanted to get the kind where you screw in, and I don't know if you're familiar with pipes. They have that have threads on them. You can get end caps that they screw into, but that was not going to work for me to get it set right. So what I ended up doing was getting a couple of closet rods, brass closet rod holders. And I had to buy 2 packs because I didn't want the one with the open end, because the closet rods come with one that's open and one that's closed, so you can drop the pole in and drop it down. So I bought 2 packs, so I get 2 of the closed-end ones. And the only concern I had was, are they going to let it pivot? I don't want it pivoting loosely. But what happened was, this seat, you can probably see it if you look closely. You see there's the metal on the side has a dip in it, a shape to it. And so what I did was I put that right halfway on that angle there. And so what it did when I tightened it down, it automatically wedged those to where they won't pivot. It's like put, there's a word for it that I'm not thinking of, but anyway, it put a counter pressure on it and allowed it to tighten up. So I just put 2 bolts in and it worked fine. It was a little bit, as you can see here, it was a little annoying trying to get it done. So anyway, that's on there, and I give that a big thumbs up. Next step now is to get that on the seat, and you can see the rails have the bolts. I put new bolts in there, and they're preset. I have my son help me line it to get it started because it's hard that wants to move on those rails. So now I'm going to get those back in. The bolts are a little difficult, so this is a little bit of a kind of a time-consuming more than I wanted, but you know, that's the way it is when you're building something from scratch. Now, you may be building a rig and have a seat that's like a gaming seat or something like that, or a sim racing seat that's already, everything's all set up. And that's fine, you wouldn't have to do this step. But I'm showing you the steps I had to take to build this rig, and that's one of them. So that worked out nice. And now I'm going to start working on the shifter, which was the most difficult, by far, thing to do, because I have a certain way I want it. I want it to be where the shifter's just like on the console of a regular car, as close as I can get to that. So it needs to be pretty close to the seat, and as far forward as I can get it, really. Not as far forward as I can get it, but I want it to be where at least when you put your elbow down, your elbow's not going to hit the back of the seat, or, you know, it's far enough forward to where that'll be the case. In this situation, you can see that I'm testing it as I go. That's what I was telling you in the first video I was going to do. I was going to do it by feel. So you see me get back in the seat again, kind of hold it where I want it to be, and then kind of get a plan from there. So I had some brackets that I already had kind of in my head what I want to do. And so you can see what I'm doing here. I just drilled the holes for them. And getting all the metal shavings up, obviously. You want to do that every time you're laying around. Little trick I do there is tape the heads, because when you push 2 of them in, they want to fall back out. You're trying to get the nuts on. So just a little trick, you tape the heads up, and that way you can put it in there and get it together. So now I'm testing again. I've got that initial bracket on for right now. Now what I wanted to do was, originally I wanted to be able to put it on the moving part of the seat to where the shifter would move out of the way, so people get in and out easy. So once I'm testing again right now. But the problem with that is that if you do that, then there's no way I could get the stability I wanted. So what my intention here is to kind of triangulate. I don't know if it's triangulate, it's more like biangulate, whatever. But get one bracket on the seat and the other bracket on my frame, and then hook it to both in where I bolted in from the bottom with the M6 bolts that Fanatec always uses for stuff on the bottom. And then they have actually M5 bolts on the front of the shifter. Now what I'm doing now is I'm going to combine the handbrake to the shifter. Now Fanatec allows you to do that, which is really cool. The problem is if you just put them together with the bolts that hold together, that's too close, and so you hit 5th gear and your hands into the handbrake. So what I'm doing here is putting spacers in there so that it's far enough away but still has structural rigidity. And you can see there I did that, and if you look closely, it's kind of fast, but there's actually 2 bolts holding that. Later I actually don't know if I have that on here or not, but I go into the handbrake and drill another hole to put a 3rd one on there to give it that 3, just give it extra bolt mounts. It looks almost like with the spacers it wouldn't be solid, but it's super solid. And if you get to look later, you'll see those 3 spaces are not spaced evenly. One's a little short, and the reason for that is for me to add my own hole, I had to adjust around the internal components, so I couldn't do it dead center. So if you look at that later and go, hey, you didn't get those centered. Hey, that's why. But anyway, so now I'm going through the operation of getting a bracket onto the rig frame. And I'm just going to add to the little bit to the lever that I already have so I can get it in the position I want. Now, here's the thing. The Fanatec shifter is really cool in that all the way around it on the little cooling things are, well, I don't know if they're cooling for the shifter. Like on the motor, it's a cooling thing, but or on the base. But on here, it's like that. And they're like 80-20 type things where you slide the nuts down in there. I did that for the handbrake to put it on there. You have to take the head off the shifter and open it up enough to slide those nuts in from the top. And I did that for the handbrake. And so now I'm putting the bracket on here, I'm actually trying to get the main structure of the bracket and the, structure of the bracket the way I want it. And I'm going to hook it to that. And then I'm going to try and get that bolted from the bottom onto that bracket. And then the bracket you see there that's on the wood, the black vertical bracket, that one I'm getting aligned. That's one of the reasons I did the way I did, to align it perfectly with the track that's on the 80-20 type slots for the nuts on the shifter. So I want to have that hooked to that, and then have the bottom bolts in that, and then have the front bolts on the front. And the theory there is it's going to be super strong when I do that. And I want the shifter not to move at all. I want it to be just as solid. You feel just as comfortable as you would in a real transmission. And that was my intention. But unfortunately, to make that happen, there was a little bit of trial and error getting the holes just lined up right. And then in a minute here, what will happen is I actually had it all kind of tight together. I got the bottoms in, and then I realized I couldn't move the nuts on the 80-20 slots into the proper position to get them on the bracket. So then I get that part in, and then I'm like, oh, I got to take that back off again. Well, I had to loosen everything back up enough and then fiddle around for a while to get all the bolts right. And that little light, by the way, if you guys are doing any kind of work like this, I highly get on Amazon. I recommend, maybe I'll even put it on a link in the description, but that is the handiest little light ever. It's a little LED light with a clamp on, and my goodness, I mean, you can see now I'm under there with that light right there where I need it to be. You know how frustrating it is if you've ever done any work on anything tight like that and you don't have the proper light, you're trying to use your phone or even a shop light or anything. Now there you can see my fist go up. That means I was just getting so frustrated. It was the most frustrating part of the whole build because I just, man, every time I try and get one, the other would be the other way. And then I had to re-drill the holes in the one bracket. Now the thumbs up, that's good. That means I finally got it. Now watch, I'm going to get in here. I'm going to sit down and look where the position of this thing is to my arm. I mean, it's just amazing. So yeah, I was glad to get through with that. So now we're skipping to the wheel out. You see I have it just sitting up there, and you can see my metal's even sagging down, but I'm just trying to get a basic idea of where I want it, and I'm also taking into account the way the metal's sagging down. I'm just trying to make sure, double check that the seat, the shifter, everything's kind of the way I want it. As I said in the first video, I'm going to be doing this, you know, some of it by feel, because I want to make sure that, I mean, you can take measurements and you can look at other stuff and just figure what your feet would be and then measure all that. But you know what? There's nothing better than, if you're building a rig, I recommend you get the seat in and then you maybe have your basic measurements, but you fine tune everything to feel by getting in there and testing. So now I'm putting the front mounts on the rig itself, and you can see I already have angle brackets down there in that. I'm going to actually drill through those and screw back through them in both directions and glue these in. So once again, we're at total rigidity here. And I can tell you, well, you'll see at the end of the video here, I have a little demonstration that I do just to show the structure of this unit. I guarantee that this unit is as strong as any 80-20 unit that you can get. And it's not going to creak, it's not going to move. But so what I'm doing now is and the plate's a little shorter than the thing, and that's because you can only buy that metal in without buying a big old full expensive sheet. It's already expensive. That was $50 just for that one piece right there, and it's 2 feet length what they have. I need a little over, but you can see it doesn't matter because it's going to go over that 204 anyway, and it's going to work. So now I've just got it figured out exactly where I want it to be. I've tacked it in. Now here's the little trick from the old guy mind here, and you'll see what I'm doing here. This is going to be the final, just absolute structural killer right here. It's going to make this thing just a total beast that it is. And what I'm doing here, you'll see, I don't even have to explain this much, but one thing you might say is, man, you're almost cutting all the way through these 2x4s. So right now I'm setting the saw for the blade to be the depth that's equal to that angle iron. Okay, and I'm cutting through that. And you might be going, oh my gosh, he's cutting almost through the wood and it's going to lose all of his strength. Well, it seems that way. That is a definite concern. You know, you don't want to do that. So I get that initial cut, and now I'm marking the flat part of the angle iron. And you can see I'm doing the multiple cuts thing in between there. Most of you probably, if you do any woodworking, you know what I'm doing here. But otherwise, you just do that at the depth that you want, and then you just take a hammer and chisel and chip it out. And I'm not worried about visual thing on this part anyway, so I can be pretty sloppy with this, just as long as the measurements are straight. I mean, I don't have to make sure a little chip of wood's just perfect and all that. So now I had to reset for that because I had to reset the initial one to get a little wider cut to fit that in right. But the intention is, and with that, you can see they're flush. And now I put the plate back over that, and this is where it's going to get really strong. So I am going to force glue into those slots. So with the glue and the angle iron in those slots, it's stronger than the 2x4 ever thought to be. Now I could put other 2x4s up underneath there, and I thought about doing that, but believe me, there's no sense in it. This thing is solid as a rock. Both of the risers, the angle riser and the back one, are already solid as a rock. But now I'm linking those two together with this iron, and believe me, that's making it really strong. So now I'm forcing all the glue I can up in there. Well, I actually did before this part. After I got it done, I forced more glue in every crack. And then I made sure that was right. And I put the panel on there, the steel plate on there, and put more glue on that. And I'm going to bolt that in as well. If you noticed when I was talking, I was actually bolting those angle irons in. So they're bolted in as well. And now I'm going to screw these all into the wood and the angle iron, and I'm doing that right now. Of course, you got to countersink all these as well, and yeah. So now I'm going to drill up the front part, and this is right. Make sure the front part is on the angle iron, and the part that I'm not going to show coming up here is I forgot to hyperlapse. What I did was I took some of the backing board, the white backing board that I normally use, and I clamped a piece down onto there, and then I routed it, and that's what you're seeing there. So this is it for video number 2, and let me just show you the strength of it. That's me standing on the very end showing you the strength. Please tune in for the 3rd video. It's going to be awesome. Have a good one, and take care. Thanks for watching.